Greetings and welcome back. In this video, we are going to take a look at dynamic material instances in Unreal Engine 4. Now, what is a dynamic material instance? Basically, it is a material that can update or change at runtime. So while you're playing the game, you can make a material change. Now, the way we're going to be approaching this is with the combination of two separate elements that you need to be aware of straight out of the gate. First one, well, actually, let me draw some boxes here so we can just represent them visually for you. The first one will be a parameterized material. And we'll just say parameter, because I don't have a lot of room. So we need a parameterized material, and we need a blueprint. We add those two things together, and we're going to get a dynamic material instance. Now, that means that before you jump into this video, you should probably understand what was already covered in the material lessons and what we cover in the blueprint lessons as well. Now, I don't know the order in which you've watched these videos, so if you haven't seen those yet, you're welcome to follow along. I will be calling out every single thing that I click on and drag, so you should have a pretty good time, but it will probably go smoother for you if you already know a thing or two about materials and a thing or two about blueprints. So for our demonstration, what we're going to do is take a simple prop, which is a chair, and I'm going to draw like the world's probably gaudiest looking chair. It doesn't look as cool as the one in the game anyway. So we have this chair, and it looks something like this, and it has these colored cushions. And we're going to set a perimeter around that chair so that when somebody enters that perimeter, like the player, so this is you, the cushion colors are actually going to change to some random value. Now that's extremely easy to set up, and it's going to teach us a lot of things about how we can take a material and change something like its color. However, also understand going in, this is a very, very simple example. Now as you get deeper into using Unreal Engine 4, you can make materials change for a lot of different reasons, a lot more than just proximity. You may do hit checks, so like when you shoot something it changes, or when it enters a specific environment the material might change. There's a lot of different ways to apply this, so try to keep that critical thinking aspect in mind at all times. So let's jump over to Unreal Engine 4, and I just have a blank project. I have the starter content here so that we can use it and kind of play with it, and I just have a brand new default level. Now, in the props folder for the starter content, you see that we have this little static mesh chair, and I'm going to double click this and open it up in the static mesh editor for just a second, just long enough for us to notice that it has a material called m_chair. If I double click this, we can see the material that makes this up. And overall, this is a pretty simple material. But take a look. For all of its colors, we didn't just use a simple vector. We used actual vector parameters, so we can change these later on. This is important when you want to create a dynamic material, something that can change at runtime. You need to have some kind of parameter that you can talk to. In this case, the parameter that we're most interested in is color seats right here. So this actually changes the color of the chair seat. Now that's all we need of that information. Just remember that name. If you need to write it down now, go ahead. It's COLOR, capital SEATS, but the actual casing doesn't matter. As long as you get color seats and you can spell that, you're fine, which actually means I could be in a lot of danger. So let's go ahead and close this out. And I'm not just going to bring a copy of this static mesh chair in. Instead, I'm going to make a blueprint derived from that static mesh. So for the sake of being organized, let's jump over to the materials folder here. I'm sorry, the blueprints folder. Saying one thing and reading another, it's so much fun. So let's jump over to the blueprints folder here in the content browser. I'll right click and create a brand new blueprint. And in the pick parent class dialog, I'll just choose actor, so it's just a placeable object, and we'll call this the random chair. Random. Did you see my spelling problem? Told you, we're going to have some fun with this. So I have a random chair blueprint, which currently has really nothing going on. Let's go ahead and double click that to open it up. And we start off in the components panel, which is exactly where we want to be. I'm going to double click this window and kind of drag it off to the side just to make the most of my available screen space. If you're working on your own machine, it is nice to have a second monitor. I realize not everybody has two monitors to work from, but if you can get two, I think it'll make your life a lot easier. I know it surely makes mine pretty easy. So let's go under the props folder, And here's our static mesh chair. We're simply going to drag and drop this right into the components panel here inside of our blueprint, and we immediately get the chair. Doesn't get much easier than that. Now we need to establish the perimeter around the chair where we can walk into it and cause the random color shift to change. So in my components panel, let me go ahead and make the screen nice and big just to kind of adjust our focus accordingly. In the components panel, we'll go under the add component dropdown and I'll scroll way down, and near the bottom you'll see a box component. So just click on that and that creates a box. Now here inside the components viewport, I'm just going to use the move tool and position that box to about halfway up the chair. I'll tap the R key to switch over to the scale tool, and let's scale this out in width. We'll scale it up a little bit in height as well. It's okay if it overlaps down into the floor a little bit. And then we'll also scale it out in Y. So I have a nice big area around the chair, but when we play, it'll probably feel like we kind of have to walk right up to the chair to get the randomization to happen, and that's perfectly fine. So with that done, we are ready to actually start graphing out our behavior, so we can switch over to the graph mode here in the Blueprint editor. However, I think we're about 6 minutes in. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and I'll close out this window. Make sure to jump over to the Blueprints folder and right-click and save your new asset. And then when we come back in the next video, we'll actually put together the blueprint graph that will cause our behavior to happen. That'll wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.